All right, today we're going to start Unit 2 and we're going to learn how to divide polynomials. And in order to be able to do that, I'm going to first just remind you how we do long division with numbers. Okay, so the problem that we're going to try here is 72 divided by 3. Notice we put what is called the dividend here under the radical sign. And this is called the divisor over here, the 3. And the answer, or the quotient, is going to go up top above that line here. Okay, so pay attention just to the thinking. I want to remind you about what our thoughts are here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the 7 divided by the 3. So we know 3 goes into 7 2 times. So we're going to write our 2 up here. And then we're thinking 2 times 3 equals 6. So that leaves us with 1 left over. Our next step is we're going to bring down the 2. And then we're going to start our thinking again. So our thinking here now is 12 divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And 12 minus 12 is 0. So that means we have no remainder, nothing left over. That means 72 divided by 3 equals 24 with no remainder. Okay, so we're going to use that same idea or that same thinking, that same process as we learn to divide polynomials. So here we go. Here's our first example. We have our dividend, which is x squared plus 7x plus 12. Our divisor is x plus 3. And again, our quotient is going to be the answer that we get up at the top here. Okay, so our first thought is going to be x. We're going to take the first term of the dividend and we're going to divide it by the first term of the divisor. So our first thought is going to be x squared divided by x. And I'll just write that at the side here for you just for the first time so that you can see it. We're going to take x squared and we're going to divide by x. And of course you should be able to see that that leaves us with an x. Now the one thing is when we put our x term in the quotient spot above, we want to actually line up our terms. So we want to put it where the x terms are in that column there. Okay, now we're going to think again about multiplying. So we are going to take x and we're going to multiply it by the entire binomial here, by the entire divisor. Okay, so again our thought is x times x plus 3. Okay, and when we do that, we of course get x squared plus 3x. Okay, now we're going to subtract. Here we're going to get x squared minus x squared, which gives us nothing. If you have divided correctly, that should always be the case. And here we have 7x minus 3x, which leaves us with 4x. Okay, now we are going to bring down the 12, so the plus or positive 12, and we're going to start the process. We're going to start the thinking again. So now we're going to take 4x divided by x. I'll just write that on the side for the last time so you can visualize that. 4x divided by x is 4 or positive 4. Now we're going to multiply the 4 times the divisor, x plus 3. And of course that gives us 4x plus 12. And when we do subtract here, we get 4x minus 4x, which is 0. We get 12 minus 12, which is 0, meaning again that this divides into this perfectly evenly and we have no remainder. We're then going to express our result in what is called quotient form. Okay, so therefore, what did we find out? We found out that x squared plus 7x plus 12 divided by x plus 3 equals x plus 4. This is what's called quotient form, and that's how you need to write all your answers. If we had a remainder, we would add the remainder onto the end, and we'll deal with that in our next example. Okay, so in our next example now, we're going to get a little bit more complicated. This is going to be our dividend, this is going to be our divisor, and we're going to actually need to set that up ourselves. So when we set it up, we're going to leave some space at the top. We need to, when we put our dividend under the radical sign there, we need to make sure that we put it in descending order of powers. So we need our 6x cubed first, minus our 4x squared minus 9x minus 3. Okay, and then we're going to put our divisor over here at the side, and what we need to make sure that we do in both the dividend and the divisor is that we have all values accounted for. So the divisor is actually 2x squared, and we need a plus 0x in there, which is what's called a placeholder, minus 3. Same thing would be if the dividend was missing any of the terms, then we would need to put a 0x or a 0x squared or a 0x cubed in as a placeholder. Okay, so here we go with our thinking. First thought, the first term, 6x cubed divided by 2x squared. So 6x cubed divided by 2x squared. Okay, and we know that that gives us 3x. Actually, just an x, right? So we're going to write it over here. Okay, and now our thought is that we're taking our 3x and we're multiplying it by all of this. So when we multiply our 3x by all of that, we of course get 6x cubed, and those always need to match up if you have done it correctly. When we take 3x times 0x, we get 0x squared. And when we take 3x times negative 3, we get negative 9x. Okay, now we're going to continue with our subtraction. Okay, here we get 0x cubed. In this one right here, we're going to get negative 4x squared plus or minus 0x, which is negative 4x squared. Okay, here we're going to get negative 9x, subtract negative 9x, which is negative 9x plus 9x, which gives us 0x. And now we're ready to bring down our next term, so we'll bring down the minus 3, and we'll start the process again. First thought, negative 4x squared divided by 2x squared is going to give us negative 2. And now we're going to multiply negative 2 times our divisor. So we get negative 4x squared. Negative 2 times 0 is 0x. And negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. And again, we're going to subtract. We get 0. We get 0. Negative 3 minus 6 gives us negative 9. Okay, and you're going to need to practice this process to get really, really good at this process. Let's write our answer in what's called quotient form. Okay, therefore, 6x cubed minus 4x squared minus 9x minus 3 divided by 2x squared minus 3 equals 3x minus 2, subtract 9 over 2x squared minus 3. The reason the remainder has to be over the divisor is because you would have started by now taking the remainder and dividing it by that. It hadn't actually been divided yet. Okay, now this is what is called expressing our answer in quotient form. There is a statement that can be used to check our work, as you can see right here. So I also want you to think about here that we can take, this all means that our dividend, 6x cubed minus 4x squared minus 9x, minus 3, our dividend, equals our divisor, 2x squared minus 3, times our quotient, 3x minus 2, plus our remainder, which in this case is negative 9. So if you actually expanded out the right side of this, it should actually equal the original dividend. Now, that is the process of long division. We are actually going to also learn a quicker method that sort of just uses the coefficients, okay? called synthetic division. Okay, now I want you to pay attention to the setup of this, and then we're going to practice it a lot in class. Okay, so here we go for the setup. Now we are dividing just a simple one by x plus 5, just so you can see sort of how it looks. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is up at the top here, we are going to put the coefficients of our dividends. So in this case, our coefficients are 1, 3, and negative 28. Okay, and then outside, in front of this little rectangular shape, we're going to take the number that we see right here. Okay, so in this case, it's a positive 5, so we're actually going to write a positive 5 out here. Okay, and here we go for the process. We're going to bring down the 1. Then we are going to multiply the 1 times the 5, and we're actually going to write that number over here. So 1 times 5 is going to give us 5. And then similar to long division, we're going to now subtract. 3 minus 5 gives us negative 2. Okay, now we're going to multiply again. Negative 2 times 5. And that's going to give us negative 10. And then we're going to subtract. We're going to have to just be careful when we have negatives. So we have negative 28 minus negative 10, which is negative 28 plus 10, which gives us negative 18. Now, what does this mean? This right here is our remainder, and this right here is our quotient. Okay, it's the coefficients of our quotient. Always starting from constant term and working up in ascending order of powers. So our quotient is actually 1x minus 2. Okay, so here we have our answer in quotient form. This is what we found out. We found out that x squared plus 3x minus 28, when we divide that by x plus 5, we get 1x minus 2. And then we have a remainder of negative 18, which of course still has to be divided by our x plus 5. Okay, or similarly, we could check by, x squared plus 3x minus 28 equals our x plus 5, our divisor, times our quotient, minus 18. Okay, and both of those statements are true. Okay, we're going to practice both synthetic division and long division to make sure that you're really good at both. Of course, eventually we'll use a lot of synthetic division because it is a little bit faster, so we want to make sure we get comfortable with both methods. Thanks very much. See you in class.